I lived with her for 3 years. We shared a home, vacations, birthdays, lazy Sundays. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. The only thing that didn't add up was our bedroom. She always had an excuse: headaches, stress, being tired. I believed her. Then came the therapist, a woman, supposedly helping her with emotional blocks. They spent more and more time together. It wasn't until I came back from a business trip early that I found out the truth. What shocked me most wasn't the betrayal. It was who I chose to sleep with after. They say the first year is the hardest. For us, the third was not because of arguments or money problems. On paper, everything was fine. We both worked steady jobs, lived in a modern apartment with a city view, went on weekend trips when time allowed. Friends said we were solid, that we had real chemistry. And for a while, I believed that too. But behind the curtains, something small kept digging at me. A missing piece I didn't want to admit was important: intimacy. She rarely wanted to touch me, even less to sleep with me. At first, I thought it was a phase, stress, maybe. She said her libido had always been low, that she just wasn't wired that way. Sometimes she'd blame work. Sometimes it was a headache. Sometimes she'd just pull away gently and whisper, "Not tonight." It's hard to argue with someone you love. You don't want to push them. You want to believe them. So I did. But deep down, I started questioning myself. Was I not attractive enough? Not romantic enough? Was I doing something wrong? The irony was, I was an insecure guy. Not before this. I kept myself in good shape, dressed well, had a decent sense of humor. Women noticed me, even flirted sometimes. But none of that mattered. I only wanted her. And she didn't seem to want me. I suggested we try therapy. Together, she refused, said it was too personal. But after a week of silence between us, she agreed to go alone. I supported that. I told myself this was a step in the right direction. The therapist was a woman named Laura. My girlfriend didn't tell me much about her, except that she was compassionate and really gets it. She started going twice a week, then 3 times. Then suddenly it was evenings too. Laura said we need more sessions during stressful periods, she told me. It's just temporary. I tried to be understanding, but the pattern kept repeating. Me, alone on the couch, waiting, her, coming home late, claiming the sessions went over time. She smiled more around then, though not at me. She seemed lighter, more relaxed. But our intimacy didn't improve. Not really. I started to wonder if I was losing her. Then came the business trip. 2 weeks across the country. I told her in advance, and she seemed almost relieved. Said she'd miss me, but that it would give her time to reset her emotions. She helped me pack, kissed me at the airport, told me to call every night. And I did. For the first few days, everything felt normal. She sent me photos of the cat, told me about her day, said she was tired from therapy, said she was working through a lot. But after the first week, her replies slowed down. Calls went unanswered. When I did reach her, she always sounded distracted. On the 10th day, I told her I'd extended the trip for another few days. That was a lie. I flew home early. I didn't call, didn't text. I just showed up quietly, pulling into the driveway like any other evening. There was a car in front of our apartment, a sleek white sedan I didn't recognize. I parked a block away and walked the rest of the distance on foot. My chest was tight, my pulse heavy in my ears. I circled around to the back. There was a gap in the curtains. And that's when I saw it. Her, my girlfriend, kissing another woman. Not just kissing. It was intimate, passionate, familiar. I didn't recognize her at first. Tall, sharp features, confident body language. But then I remembered the name on her emails. Laura, the therapist. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wasn't angry yet. Just stunned, frozen, like my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Then it all clicked. The missed calls, the late nights, the emotional distance. And suddenly, it wasn't about sex anymore. It was about trust, about years of love being twisted into something scripted and dishonest. I backed away quietly and sat in my car for half an hour. Then I texted her, landing in an hour, be home soon. 15 minutes later, the therapist's car pulled away. I waited a bit longer, then walked inside as if nothing had happened. She greeted me with a warm smile, pretending to be surprised. "You're early." I said nothing, just hugged her, dropped my bags, and asked what was for dinner. Because that night, I didn't want revenge. I wanted proof, and I knew exactly how I was going to get it. She set the table like nothing had happened. Candles, wine, my favorite pasta, her usual sweet effort when I came back from trips. But now, everything tasted like paper. Every smile from her felt choreographed, and I was suddenly hyper-aware of her hands, the ones that had touched someone else just hours earlier. "So," she asked between bites, "how was your trip?" I nodded slowly. "Productive." She smiled again, too wide. "You didn't say you'd be back tonight." "I missed you," I said, and sipped the wine. "Wanted to surprise you." Her eyes flickered, just for a second. "Well, you did." We ate mostly in silence after that. She asked a few questions. Careful ones. Where did I stay? Who did I meet? Any funny stories from the airport? I answered them all, even added a joke or two. Played the role of the happy, trusting boyfriend, the one I used to be. But behind my smile, I was dissecting everything. Her tone, her body language, every blink, every pause. She was nervous, not because she felt guilty, but because she didn't know how much I knew. That's when I realized she didn't suspect a thing. She truly thought I had no clue, which gave me power. "So," I said as we cleared the plates, "I had an idea." "Oh, I was thinking we should have Laura over for dinner sometime. You two have gotten so close lately." She froze just for half a second. "Really?" "Sure," I smiled. "It'd be nice to get to know the woman who's been helping you." Her mouth opened slightly, then shut. I'm not sure she'd feel comfortable. I mean, we try to keep therapy boundaries and all that. I get that, but it's just a friendly dinner. Nothing heavy. Besides, I trust you. There was again another flicker in her eyes, a stutter in her soul. She agreed, reluctantly, but she agreed. We set a date for the following week. In the meantime, I played the long game. I was careful, loving. I held her hand while we walked, laughed at her jokes, even cooked breakfast one morning, just like I used to. I watched her closely. She was trying hard to keep the act going, and honestly, she was good. Most guys would have never noticed. But I wasn't most guys anymore. The night of the dinner, I cleaned the apartment and wore a shirt she liked. She looked tense in her dress, barely touching her wine. When Laura arrived, it was like watching two actors greet each other before a play, polite, measured, with subtle cues only I was meant to catch. And damn, Laura was beautiful. Classy. Confident. She had this way of commanding a room, even in silence. I almost forgot, for a moment, why I hated her. We sat. We ate. Talked about generic things, news, travel, books. I asked about her practice, pretending to be fascinated. She answered smoothly, but her eyes kept darting to my girlfriend, who avoided eye contact like it was poison. The tension was delicious. After dessert, I offered drinks on the balcony. My girlfriend declined, said she had a headache, and went to lie down. Laura hesitated, then joined me. We sat outside under the warm city lights. I poured whiskey and watched her. "You know," I said after a long silence, "I really admire what you do." She raised an eyebrow. "Being a therapist?" I nodded. "Takes a lot of trust, doesn't it? People open up to you. Vulnerability, secrets, boundaries." She sipped slowly. "It's not always easy." I turned my gaze to the street below. "Do you ever get emotionally involved?" Another pause. "It happens." "Even romantically?" She stiffened just slightly. "There are ethical lines. And when they're crossed?" She looked me dead in the eyes. "Then you face the consequences." We sat in silence, the air thick with unsaid truths. I could see her calculating. Did I know? Was I baiting her? Was I about to explode? But I didn't. Not yet. I'm glad you came. I said, you're welcome here anytime. And I meant it, because I had her where I wanted her. The next day, I messaged her, casually, thanking her for coming. Then we talked again. And again. Nothing flirty at first, just conversation. I knew what I was doing. She didn't push back. Eventually, she gave me her Instagram, and a week later, we were texting like old friends. A month later, we met for coffee. Another 2, and I was in her apartment. No words, no pretense, just fire. And that night, after everything, I told her the truth, that I knew, that I had always known, that the joke wasn't on me. It had been a week since I'd slept with Laura. A week of pretending, deflecting, and keeping everything calm on the surface while the ground beneath was splitting open. I wasn't sure how long I could keep it up. But I wanted her to confess. I needed her to. I didn't want revenge through silence. I wanted her to feel what I felt, and then lose it all. We were in the kitchen one evening, cooking dinner together like old times. She was humming some pop song and chopping vegetables. I stirred the pasta, watching her, wondering if she ever thought about the lies between us. Did she think I was still clueless? Or was she just too scared to say anything? You've been different lately, she said without turning. Yeah, I asked, feigning ignorance. She nodded, quieter, more, I don't know, distant. I shrugged. Work stuff, probably. She didn't press. Of course she didn't. The less we talked about feelings, the less she had to lie. After dinner, we sat on the couch. A movie played, but neither of us was watching. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I let her. My chest tightened. She was good at this. Too good. And I hated how easy it would have been to fall back into believing it. Do you still love me? She asked suddenly. Her voice was soft, small. I didn't answer right away. Then, finally, why would you ask that? She looked up. Her eyes searched mine, and I could see it. Something breaking. Something that I'd been holding for far too long. I have to tell you something, she said. My heart pounded, but I kept my face blank. Okay. She sat up straight and looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. There's something I've been hiding, something I never thought I'd have to say out loud. I waited, silent. It started after a session with Laura. She began, voice trembling. I was going through a lot. You know that. And she helped me more than I expected. She listened. She made me feel safe. Seen. She paused. I didn't interrupt. And I don't know how it happened. It wasn't supposed to happen. But we got close. Too close. Tears welled in her eyes. It only happened once. Or maybe twice. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her, cold inside. When she swallowed. A few months ago, when you were on that work trip, I thought it would stay buried. I thought I could forget it. You mean the trip you helped pack for? The one where I left early and came home 3 days ahead of schedule. Her face paled. What? I saw you, I said calmly, through the backyard window. I saw everything. Her hands shot to her mouth. You said it only happened once or twice? I continued. How many times did you lie to my face after that? She burst into tears. I didn't know you knew. God, I didn't know what to do. You did nothing, I said. You kept using me, kept smiling at me, sleeping next to me, letting me pay the bills while you played make-believe. She tried to reach for me, but I stood up. Don't. I was scared, she cried. I thought I ruined everything and couldn't take it back. But I swear I still love you. No, I said, you love what I gave you. Stability, safety, a roof, a man who didn't question you. She shook her head violently. No, it's not like that. It is, I said. And the worst part? I could have forgiven it. Maybe, but you didn't confess. You waited until you thought something was wrong, until you felt me slipping, and only then did you try to fix it. She sobbed quietly, shoulders shaking. I'm done, I said simply. You had your chance. I walked out of the living room and into the bedroom, packed a small bag. She followed me, begging, apologizing, promising. But I didn't stop. You don't love me, I said one last time at the door. You love not being alone. And now you'll have both. Then I left. 3 days passed. 3 long, quiet days. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I stayed with a friend across town, crashing on his couch. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. I just needed space. Space to think, to breathe, to decide what kind of man I wanted to be after all this. Then, on the 4th day, she texted, "Please, can we talk? Just once." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't know her that. She'd said enough, lied enough, but some part of me, stupid, stubborn, still needed to hear her out. Not because I wanted her back, but because I needed to understand how 3 years of trust had vanished without a trace. I replied, 1 hour, my cafe, before opening. The next morning, she walked in 5 minutes early. She looked different, tired, no makeup, her hair pulled into a messy bun. The confident woman I once loved now looked small, like a version of herself with the color drained out. She sat down across from me at a quiet corner table. "Thank you," she said softly. I just nodded, arms folded. "Talk." She took a shaky breath. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I'm not here to justify it, but I need you to know it wasn't about you. It never was." "Convenient," I muttered. "No," she said quickly. "Not like that. I mean, it wasn't that you weren't enough. You were more than enough. You've always been kind, supportive, stable. That was a problem." I frowned. "Being good to you was a problem?" "It scared me," she whispered. "I never had that before. You were so solid, and I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when it didn't, I sabotaged it, because I didn't think I deserved it." I didn't respond. I told Laura things I never told anyone. She saw parts of me I never wanted anyone to see. And somewhere in that vulnerability, lines got blurred. Blurred. I echoed, "You stripped together in my living room." She winced. I know what you saw, and I hate myself for it. But it wasn't just about sex. It was complicated. It always is when someone gets caught. "No," she insisted. "Even before it happened, I'd been struggling with my identity, with my needs. I didn't even know I was capable of feeling something for a woman until then. So, where are you now?" I asked. "Bi? Gay? Confused?" "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "All I know is that I never meant to hurt you. But I did, and I don't expect forgiveness." I looked at her carefully. "Are you still seeing her?" "No," she said quickly. "Not after what happened." She ended our sessions, said it was unethical, that she crossed a line she shouldn't have. "So you both knew it was wrong and did it anyway." She looked down. "And now you're here because—" "I want to say thank you," she whispered, "for the years, for your patience, for loving me even when I didn't love myself. Don't romanticize this. I snapped. You didn't leave because you were confused. You stayed, lied, took advantage of my trust. That's not confusion. That's cruelty." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "And the worst part," I continued, "is that I was ready to marry you. I was thinking of proposing after the next trip. I had the ring." She gasped. "You what?" I stood. "You lost something you didn't even know you had." She looked devastated. "I'll have your things packed," I said coldly. "Someone will drop them off." She stood too, shaky on her feet. "Please, can I say goodbye properly? Just once." "You did," I said, "the night I saw you with her." And then I walked away. I hadn't expected to miss her. That was the part that caught me off guard. After everything I had discovered, after the lies, the betrayal, the image of them together burned into my memory, I still found myself looking at the empty side of the bed, reaching instinctively before remembering she wasn't there. Or rather, she wasn't mine anymore. It had been a few weeks since I left. I moved into a small loft apartment across town, bare, functional, quiet. No scented candles on the shelves. No hair ties forgotten on the kitchen counter. No low hum of her laughter echoing in the evening. Just me, a futon, a coffee maker, and too much time to think. I blocked her number the day I walked out. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want apologies wrapped in half-truths. I wanted distance. But silence has a way of becoming its own kind of noise, and in that silence, I started to remember everything that had come before the end. How we met, how she looked at me like I was the only one in the room, how she used to run her fingers through my hair when I had a bad day, how I used to think she was the one. And then I'd remember what I saw. Her hands on someone else, her lips on someone else, her body wrapped around a lie. And I'd hate myself all over again for feeling anything but rage. But the worst part? It wasn't just her. It was the fact that I had let it happen, that I'd ignored the signs, that I'd accepted scraps of affection and called it love, that I'd convinced myself her headaches were real, that her avoidance was normal, that intimacy fades with time. Maybe it does, but not like that. One evening, I got a DM on Instagram from her friend, Emma. We'd talked a few times at gatherings, nothing major. The message was short. Hey, just thought you should know. She's telling people you were controlling, that you made her feel unsafe. My fingers froze over the screen. I stared at the words, my stomach twisting. That wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. It was erasing who I'd been, what I'd done. I gave her everything. I bent over backwards to support her. I took the blame when she shut me out. I stood by her when she cried, without ever asking what the tears were really for. And now I was the villain? I didn't respond. I just sat there, phone in hand, watching my reflection in the darkened screen. I didn't even recognize the man looking back at me. Tired eyes, unshaved jaw, shoulders heavy with questions I couldn't answer. A few nights later, I found myself driving back toward the neighborhood we used to live in. I told myself it was just to clear my head, but I knew better. I parked 2 blocks away and walked past our old house. The lights were on, laughter inside, music. I saw a new car in the driveway. Someone else was in my place. I didn't knock. I didn't go closer. I just stood there for a moment, breathing in the cool night air, letting it sting. Then I turned and walked away. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. I wasn't sure what surprised me more, that she kept trying to act like nothing had happened, or that I was still managing to play along. Some mornings, I'd catch her staring at her phone for too long, her thumb hovering over the screen as if hesitating to text someone she missed but shouldn't. And every time I saw that flicker of guilt in her eyes, I felt a strange satisfaction, like I was holding a secret grenade in my hand, and only I knew when it would go off. Things with Leah had taken a strange, intoxicating turn. What started as revenge, a twisted, impulsive affair fueled by betrayal, had begun shifting into something else, something harder to explain. I wasn't just attracted to her. I respected her mind, her strength, the way she saw through people's bullshit with clinical precision. She had been hired to untangle my girlfriend's neuroses. Instead, she exposed mine, and in the strangest way, healed them. We started meeting in secret. Not often, just enough to feed the fire. We never talked about what we were doing. We didn't need to. It was all there in the silence between us, in the way she'd pull me inside before I even knocked, in the way her body responded to mine like we'd been built to find each other eventually. Still, I was careful. I didn't want drama. Not yet. Not before I was ready to end things on my own terms. So I kept playing the part of the loyal boyfriend, just a little distracted lately, maybe a little tired from work. But my patience was wearing thin. One Saturday afternoon, while she was out getting groceries, I opened her laptop. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Part of me just wanted to know if she was still in contact with Leah. I typed in her name in the email search bar. What came up stopped me cold. Dozens of messages, most from weeks ago, but some from just days earlier. She'd been pouring her heart out to Leah in long, vulnerable emails, begging her to explain why she had pulled away, asking if it was her fault, saying things like, "You made me feel seen in a way no one ever has," and "I'm sorry if I cross a line, but I can't stop thinking about you." And then, the one that hit me like a punch to the gut, "I know you said you weren't supposed to fall for me, but I did. And I think you did too. I sat there staring at the screen, the words burning a hole in my chest. So it hadn't just been sex. It hadn't just been some experimental phase, or a lapse in judgment. She had loved her, maybe still did. And Leah? She hadn't responded. Not once. Just silence. I felt something shift in me. A cold, calm clarity. I printed out the emails. Every last one. That night, I took her out to dinner. A nice place. White tablecloths. Candles. The kind of place couples go to celebrate anniversaries or soften the blow before a breakup. She wore that navy dress I used to love. Her eyes sparkled across the table like they always had. "You've been different lately," she said, sipping her wine. "Is everything okay?" I smiled. Better than ever. She looked relieved. Maybe she thought things were finally settling, that the distance she felt between us was just the ebb and flow of long-term relationships. Halfway through dessert, I slid the folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Read it." She opened it, saw the emails, froze. Her face went pale. "Where did you left your laptop unlocked." I wasn't even trying to snoop, but I found a story, a pretty detailed one. She closed the folder slowly, then looked up at me. "I was going to tell you." "When? After you moved in with her?" She ended it. She said it was wrong. I leaned back in my chair. "That's funny." She said the same thing to me. The color drained from her face. "What?" I nodded. Let the silence do the talking. You're with her?" she whispered. "I didn't plan it." I said, "Honestly, but you lied to me repeatedly." So I stopped feeling bad about anything. Her lips trembled. "You did this to punish me." "No," I said, folding my napkin. "You did this. I just chose not to be the idiot who kept pretending everything was fine." The walk back to the car was silent. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared ahead, her whole world cracking in slow motion. At home, she packed a bag and asked if she could stay with a friend for a while. I told her to take whatever time she needed. I wasn't going anywhere. That night, I texted Leah. "It's done." She replied 10 minutes later. "Come over." I didn't hesitate. When I got there, she opened the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants. No makeup, no pretense. Just her. She stepped aside, and I walked in. Neither of us said a word. Not until hours later, tangled in her sheets, when I finally asked a question that had been burning in the back of my mind. "Why me?" She looked at me for a long time before answering. "Because for once, I wanted to be chosen, not needed. And you didn't ask me to fix you. You just saw me." I didn't say anything. I just pulled her closer. It was messy, complicated, and definitely not the ending anyone would expect. The days after the confrontation passed like a fever dream. It was the beginning of something real. She moved out with a single suitcase, leaving behind her favorite books, a scarf on the coat rack, and the scent of her shampoo on my pillow. I didn't touch anything for a week. Didn't vacuum. Didn't wash the sheets. I wanted the air to run out of her first. Leah, on the other hand, didn't ask questions. She didn't push for clarity or commitment. It was almost unsettling how easily she absorbed me into her quiet life. Her apartment became my refuge, a place without history, without echoes of betrayal in the corners. I started spending more time there than at my own place. Sometimes she'd watch me in that careful, clinical way of hers, like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve, or maybe didn't want to. "You're not angry," she said one night as I sat at her kitchen counter, nursing a beer. I didn't respond. Most people would be furious. Destroy something. Demand closure. Closure is just a pretty word for too late. I said, "Sipping. I don't need it." I saw what I needed to see. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. But underneath her calm, there was something else. Guilt? Maybe. Or maybe fear that this, whatever we were building, wasn't real. That it was just rubble rearranged to look like something whole. I won't lie and say I didn't have doubts. I did. Every time I caught myself relaxing, laughing, touching her in the dark, and not thinking the lies that brought us together, I'd flinch internally, as if happiness was a trap I hadn't learned to escape yet. And then one day, she said something that stopped me cold. We were on her couch. She was curled up in my hoodie, scrolling through something on her tablet while I read. Out of nowhere, she said, "Do you ever think we were both complicit?" "In what?" "In all of it. The dishonesty. The damage." I set my book down. "You think we deserved it?" "No, but maybe we made it easier." I didn't know how to respond. Maybe she was right. Maybe we both played roles in our own undoing long before we started touching. But guilt doesn't undo love, and love doesn't undo damage. They just coexist awkwardly, uncomfortably, like guests who show up to the same dinner party and pretend they don't hate each other. One evening, I bumped into my ex at the grocery store. She was with a friend. I could tell from the way her posture changed when she saw me, stiff but not surprised, that she'd rehearsed this moment in her head. "Hey," she said. I nodded. "This is Erin," she added, gesturing to the woman beside her. "We work together." Erin gave me a look that could cut granite. She had definitely been briefed. "Hope you're doing well," I said. "You look good," she said too quickly. "Thanks." There was a pause. And then, almost under her breath, she said, "Did you love her?" I didn't need to ask who she meant. "Yes," I said simply. Her mouth tightened, not in anger, just recognition. She nodded once and walked away. I stood there for a moment, holding a carton of eggs, wondering how we all got here. How two people could go from late-night pizza and shared dreams to awkward run-ins and whisper regrets in grocery aisles. When I told Leah about it, she listened without expression. She asked if you loved me. She said finally. I nodded, and I told her the truth. Leah looked down at her hands. "Do you?" I crossed the room and stood in front of her. I didn't plan to. I didn't want to, but yes. She blinked, not expecting it so plainly. "And you?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I think I started falling for you when you didn't yell, when you didn't throw anything, when you just let it unfold. There's something terrifyingly strong about restraint." I took her hand. "We don't have to define anything yet, but I'm here, and I'm not running." That night, we didn't sleep much, but not because of lust or desperation. We talked about her past, about mine, about what trust means when it's been broken in every possible way. And by morning, something had shifted. We still had no map, but for the first time, it felt like we weren't just wandering anymore. We were choosing the same direction, step by fragile step. It was strange how quickly people adjusted to new realities. A few weeks ago, I was the guy who got cheated on. Now, I was the guy dating the therapist. Not many knew the details, of course. Just whispers passed around mutual friends and coworkers, each version a little more exaggerated than the last. Leah and I had settled into something that looked like peace. We didn't label it. We didn't explain it. We just lived it. Quiet mornings, shared meals, and the occasional ghost of doubt that crept in during long silences. But we managed, until the message came. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a few words. "She's not over you. You should know." No name. No context. But I didn't need one. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, pretend it hadn't happened. Another part wanted to march straight to her door and ask what the hell she was trying to do. Instead, I showed it to Leah. She read it and handed the phone back without a word. "That's it." I asked, "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Anything." She leaned against the kitchen counter. "You think it was her?" I nodded. "Or someone close to her." And what does it change? That stopped me, because the truth was it didn't. I didn't want her back. I didn't miss her. But something about her reaching out, even in this passive-aggressive, cowardly way, stirred something ugly in me. Not love, not longing, resentment for the confusion she still tried to plant in my life like weeds. "She just can't let it go," I muttered. "She doesn't have to," Leah said calmly. "You do." I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who had become my sanctuary, who had met me in the wreckage and never once asked me to pretend I was whole. You're right, I said. Later that evening, I blocked the number and cleared the chat history. Gone, like her place in my life. But the message left a residue. The next morning, Leah caught me staring out the window, coffee growing cold in my hand. You okay? She asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm just tired, I said, of the echoes. She nodded, understanding me perfectly. They fade, she said. Eventually. We decided to take a trip. Nothing dramatic, just a weekend away. Somewhere coastal. A quiet bed and breakfast, walks on the beach, bad coffee at small diners. It was our first escape together, and I think we both needed it more than we admitted. On the second night, as we sat on the porch watching the tide roll in under a pale moon, Leah finally asked, Do you think we started wrong? I glanced at her. What do you mean? Us, the way we came together. Do you think it's always going to follow us? I thought about that. We started real. I said, messy, yes, but honest in its own way. She leaned into me. Sometimes I wonder if we were just two broken people clinging to each other in a storm. Maybe, I said, but we held on. That night, we made love like it was the first time. No pasts. No wait. Just two people choosing to stay. When we returned, something had shifted again. A stillness in me I hadn't felt in years. Like I could finally exhale without waiting for the next betrayal. Then, about a week later, it happened. I was in my old neighborhood, running an errand when I saw her, my ex, across the street. Alone, our eyes met for a brief second. And it wasn't rage I felt. It was pity. She walked by without saying a word. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to reopen it. It's funny how closure doesn't come with a grand finale. No fireworks. No big confrontation. Sometimes it just slips in unnoticed, a quiet absence of pain where it used to scream. After that brief street encounter with my ex, I expected something more. A message, a phone call, maybe an apology that would come too late. But there was nothing, just silence. And in that silence, I found peace. Leah noticed a shift in me before I did. You sleep through the night now, she said one morning, running her fingers through my hair as I lay half awake. You used to toss and turn like the bed was on fire. I smiled into her palm. Maybe I finally stopped chasing ghosts. Life became simpler. We stopped trying to define things. We were just two people choosing each other, not out of need, but out of want. That made all the difference. Work picked up again. I found myself waking with purpose, logging in not out of obligation but curiosity. The creative spark that had dulled under years of emotional strain returned, slow but steady. I started sketching again in the evenings, not for work, not for anyone else, just for me. One evening, Leah came home from a long session with a patient, looking exhausted. I handed her a glass of wine and motioned for her to sit. She flopped onto the couch with a groan and kicked off her shoes. I forgot how draining real therapy can be, she muttered. Better than fake therapy with hidden agendas. I joked. She cracked a smile. Low blow but fair. We talked about everything that night. Not just the past, but the future. I've been thinking, she said after a moment of hesitation, about us, about moving in together. I raised an eyebrow. You practically live here already. I know, she said, but this would make it official. No more hiding spare clothes in the car. No more pretending like we're not building something real. I took her hand. Then let's make it real. She moved in the next week. Mornings became a dance of clinking mugs and shared toothpaste. Nights were spent curled up with old movies and long conversations about nothing. For the first time in years, my house felt like a home, not a battleground. Then, one day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten envelope. I almost tossed it, thinking it was junk. But it was from her, my ex. Inside was a single piece of paper. I hope you're happy now. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I think about what I lost every day. And I hope she treats you better than I did. You deserve more. I see that now. I'm sorry. No signature. No contact details. I stared at the letter for a while, unsure what I felt. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even satisfaction. Just finality. Leah came in while I was still holding it. She looked at me, then at the paper, then back at me. Is that from her? I nodded. She didn't ask to read it. She didn't need to. Instead, she walked over, took the letter from my hand, and slid it into the fireplace. The paper curled and blackened, turning to ash in seconds. She had her say, Leah whispered. Now it's gone. I pulled her into my arms, feeling the last piece of something heavy fall off my shoulders. In the days that followed, I noticed more laughter in our home, more music, more stillness between us, not the tense kind, but the comfortable kind, the kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you should be. One night, while we were out walking, Leah stopped and looked at me. You ever think about how we got here? All the time. Do you regret anything? I thought for a long moment before answering. No, because every wrong turn still led me to you. She smiled and kissed me. The moon was high, the air was warm, and for the first time in a long time, the world felt right. One more chapter to go. They say healing isn't a straight line. It loops, spirals, and sometimes drags you back to places you thought you'd already left behind. But if you're lucky, really lucky, it eventually leads you somewhere better. Somewhere that feels like home. It had been almost a year since I walked away from the life I thought I wanted. A year since betrayal cracked me open and exposed parts of myself I didn't know existed. I had been a different man back then. Quieter, more cautious, a little more fragile. Now I was finally whole. Leah and I stood outside my favorite coffee shop, the one I used to visit back, when everything in my life felt like it was falling apart. I hadn't stepped inside since that time, but today felt right. A full circle kind of day. Ready? She asked, her hand finding mine. Yeah, I said, squeezing gently. Let's go in. Inside, everything was familiar. The smell of espresso, the old scratch tables, the indie playlist humming low in the background. But I wasn't the same man who once sat in the corner booth, wondering what went wrong. We found a spot near the window. Leah stirred sugar into her latte, smiling at something on her phone, while I leaned back and just watched her. There was no performance between us. No pretending. Just two people being real. I thought about the road that had brought me here. The long nights. The confusion. The lies I swallowed for the sake of peace. The moment I chose not revenge, but clarity. The moment I stopped needing to be the man someone else wanted, and instead became the man I needed to be. Across from me, Leah caught my gaze. What? She asked, amused. Nothing, I said. Just grateful. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, people watching, sipping coffee, letting time slow down. Eventually, Leah spoke. You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come home early that day? I nodded slowly. I do. All the time. And I probably wouldn't have found out the truth until it was too late. Maybe I'd still be stuck in that same loop, trying to fix something broken with someone who didn't really want it fixed. She reached across the table and laced her fingers with mine. But you came home, she whispered, and you found me. That was the truth of it, wasn't it? Out of all the hurt, something new had grown, something stronger. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but grounded in honesty and mutual choice. Later that afternoon, we went for a walk through the park. The same park where I once sat on a bench trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Now, I walked that path with someone who reminded me every day that love wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. At one point, we passed by a young couple arguing under a tree, voices low but sharp, the kind of argument people have when they're trying to pretend everything is fine. I caught Leah watching them too. Been there, I muttered. She smiled softly. So have I. We kept walking. That night, back home, I sat on the balcony with a blanket over my shoulders, and Leah curled up beside me. The city lights blinked below, and the stars above twinkled just enough to make you feel like maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't such a chaotic place after all. You ever gonna tell this story? Leah asked, About everything that happened? Maybe, I said, someday, but not as a story about pain. No, no, I repeated, as a story about finding yourself. About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that ever does. She nodded, kissed my shoulder, and rested her head there. I didn't need a big finale. No vengeance. No dramatic scene. This quiet, this stillness. It was the ending I didn't know I needed, and the beginning of everything else.